And now, please welcome Patty Mays, Professor, Media Arts and Sciences, MIT Media Lab.
Good afternoon, everyone. 35 years ago, I finished my PhD in artificial intelligence back when I could still know everybody in the field when I went to the conferences. And I quickly moved to MIT, what was then called the AI Lab, because that was, of course, then and still now the place to be if you wanted to be at the center of all of these AI developments. But I quickly became a little bit disillusioned by this goal that AI researchers have. That was really the goal put forward by the originator of the idea of AI, namely Alan Turing. The goal of AI back then and still now is primarily to match or surpass human intelligence and people in performance. And the vision of a lot of these AI developers, OpenAI, etc., is that AI basically will take our jobs so that we can go play golf, do art, music, etc. And they believe that that is actually a better world than one where we focus on people and augment people instead of building machines that can surpass us. So I moved after a couple of years of being a postdoc at the AI Lab to the Media Lab at MIT still as a professor, to focus on this alternate vision of intelligence augmentation, where we try to use the same technologies, the same machine learning technologies, to support human performance and to help people become smarter, better, healthier, etc., happier. I'm especially interested in using all of these technologies to support critical human skills that a lot of people may struggle with, and that prevent a lot of people from really being basically at their optimal performance. Things like memory, critical thinking, motivation, behavior change, effective communication, and more. So I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview of the types of things that I've been working on at MIT for the last many decades. A lot of our focus is on memory augmentation. For example, as you'll see in this video. So Memoro is basically a wearable AI system that augments your memory by acting as your personal ChatGPT that literally is trained on what it hears and that can help you remember any facts in the moment. We're especially interested in the aging population.
I'm an investment banker from Trade Investments.
Oh, and what do you do there?
So we invest in biotech startups that help with rare diseases, but you should reach out if you're interested.
Thank you, I will.
Oh wait, what was his name again?
Robert.
Hello, hi Grandpa. So once you're done with your walking, can you please get a dozen of eggs and a packet of bread and about 6 bananas, please?
Okay. I have taken bread and eggs. I don't know the third thing I have forgotten.
Bananas.
Hey, I'm building a biotech startup. Do you know where I can look for investment? Oh yes, I actually just met this guy last week. His name is Robert, and he works in Fluid Investments, and they specialize in
Rare diseases.
biotech startups working in rare diseases actually.
So you get the idea. There's obviously privacy issues, which I can't talk about here today, but which we think about very much. But we have been especially interested in how memory augmentation devices like this can help the aging population live in their own homes safely and independently for more years. So we've been building systems like this MemPal system, which takes pictures all day long when you wear it in your home of whatever you are doing with your hands. And we use multimodal AI models to analyze what the person is doing. They're opening the fridge at this time, so they must be making breakfast, etc. The system does not keep the images, it just analyzes them, produces this diary, but then that diary can be used in all sorts of ways. For example, here we see the person asking their MemPal where they may have left their phone.
Hi, pal, where is my phone?
And so she hears that whispered in her ears, basically. The system noticed where she last had her phone in her hands, where she put it down, etc. We've been working closely with older adults, like the one you saw in the video, bringing them to MIT to co-design solutions based on what they find their most important needs to be. So this system actually doesn't just help the older adult with helping find objects, reminding them to turn the stove off when they've turned it on earlier, or to lock the door at night. The caregivers are also helped. The caregivers actually, their burden is reduced because they can get little summaries sent by the AI system if they have permission, of course, from the older adult. Summaries that say your mother had 3 meals and went out and this and that, and she's been getting some exercise and so on. Doctors can potentially also get access to some of this data, etc. All of this is possible now with AI models. We're also looking at how AI can help maybe younger people learn how to think critically. All of us are increasingly bombarded by information that is trying to persuade us and that is maybe not logically valid or truthful. So we have been building systems that actually either can listen to what you hear or can also read what you are looking at on the screen. And in real time, these systems give you advice whether something is true or false, and the system can also explain why. And we've been using natural language explanations and showed that people can improve their discernment of factual information when they have these agents that in real time give them advice. But then we did another experiment. We thought, well, what if the agent is malicious and actually tries to convince you of the opposite of what is actually true? And unfortunately, we learned that when people have this access to AI decision-making at their fingertips, they ultimately end up thinking less for themselves. So in gray, you see how well a person can discern between true and false newspaper headlines when they are not assisted by an AI. In blue, you see how well they do for true and false headlines with a good AI that gives you correct advice. But in red is how well people perform if they are assisted by a malicious AI. And you can see that basically their performance is almost halved compared to being without an AI. So we have to be very careful, because people assisted by AI, and we are not the only ones to find this, ultimately start becoming a little bit lazy potentially and losing certain skills because they start overly relying on these very persuasive systems. So we are working on techniques like new interfaces where the AI engages the user in thinking about the problem first before saying, this is true because, and this is false because, so that the person actually thinks for themselves. And we show that even AI doesn't just give you the answer right away with an explanation, but instead engages you with some Q&A that people actually perform a lot better. We've also been looking, and this was work that we were doing back when all the kids were learning from home during the pandemic. We've been looking at whether AI could actually help motivate people. For example, could it help motivate them to learn? And back in 2020, Elon Musk, who you probably recognize there on the left, was still more liked by more people. So we thought we would pick someone, a public figure who some people loved and admired, other people not as much. And we wanted to see if we have this deep fake of Elon Musk. We told people, by the way, this is a deep fake. It's not a real Elon Musk. So we created this deep fake, told them it was a deep fake, and we had Elon Musk and then this non-existing character teach a lesson, just like we were all, or the kids were all learning during COVID. The lesson was about vaccines, by the way. The soundtrack was the exact same for this non-existing deepfake and for deepfake Elon Musk. And what we learned is that depending on whether people admired Elon Musk, they wanted to learn more about the topic. They thought the instructor was a great instructor, etc. It made a significant statistical difference, basically, in all the outcomes, in that people were much more motivated to learn, etc., if they actually had Elon Musk and they liked Elon Musk. So there's a lot of interesting research that can be done in sort of the subtleties of how people react emotionally, psychologically, socially to these systems that really speak our language, basically, and seem very human-like. We've also been looking at, can AI help motivate behavior change? This is actually one of the toughest problems out there. Can we help people change their behavior for the better? And we've been working with some psychologists, Hal Hershfield from UCLA, looking at future continuity is sort of the technical name of the area. As you all know, when a certain decision has consequences in the future, we tend to not sort of think as much about these consequences, like maybe all of you went for cookies in the break today, and you don't immediately feel the weight or the increased in blood pressure or whatever. It comes 30 years later. So people often have trouble sort of changing their behavior for more sustainable behavior when there is this sort of discontinuity between taking the action and when the effects, the negative effects occur. Of course, that's very much the case for global warming as well. So we thought, can we actually use AI to help people think more or be more future-oriented? And we built this system that where you can upload a picture of yourself and you can tell the system what your goals are, what your life is like. You answer a couple of questions, and then the system creates an older version of you, not just a picture, but also a chatbot that you can talk to about what your future might be like if you do X, Y, and Z. So For example, in this case, the young lady said, I think I want to become a biology teacher in an inner city. I want to have a family, a couple of kids, etc. And she can talk to a simulated future self about what it's like to be a biology teacher. What are the good things and the bad things, etc. How is her financial situation, etc. And all of that really helps make that future more tangible. And what we showed together with Hal Hirschfield is that this changes people's behavior, basically. They become more future-oriented because that future has become more real to them. We're also doing things like helping people with difficult communications using AI. We have a system where you can create a conversation partner and model them after, say, your boss or your parents or a colleague that you disagree with. You give the system some information about the other person, and it simulates that person and how they would respond to you given a particular difficult conversation, whether it's a conversation about getting a raise or a certain decision that you disagree on, etc. So you can rehearse your conversations in advance with AI models to then better perform in the actual conversation. We've been using this, for example, to help LGBTQ young people come out to their parents, and just published a paper about that. So I would argue that, as we heard in the previous panel as well, AI is here to stay, but I hope that I'm convincing a couple of you solvers to not sort of work towards this vision of AI that surpasses and replaces us, but rather put people at the center and design for augmentation to really help support people, especially the most vulnerable, in ultimately becoming the person that they would like to be. Thank you.